Hello and welcome to the 18th day of January 2022. My name is Kurt and this is my daily Good Life meditation where I think about the past day, last night, recite my objectives and principles, and then see how I can maybe apply these to the coming day by looking at what's coming and anticipating the challenges. So first, last night and yesterday. Hi, dogs. Didn't sleep so well last night. I get up at 5 a.m. I was awake at 3 with my usual tossing and turning. My brain is always wants something to toy with, and had kind of it was a melancholy weekend, you know. I have that. There's these cycles in my life. It always has been the case. No particular reason, just because. And I've learned to. There's really not much I can usually do about it, other than just to weather that. So I use, bringing some of my principles to bear. I use the principle of that which must be borne to just remind myself that there's sometimes you just have to push through the weather, the rainy days when when the atmosphere and the brain is a little bit inclement, and also fortitude to just stay the course. Invariably, the fog lifts. I can almost predict with certainty that within the next couple of hours that fog will lift, namely because of work. Work is a great remedy for me for feeling good. As soon as I throw myself into my work, I tend to lift my mood. And I had Friday off, and then yesterday was a holiday on Monday, so 4 straight days without work. That's a little more than maybe I can bear. This is one of those reasons that I have to beware retirement. I may not be one of those people that can bear it well, and I'm working on that. So I didn't sleep so well last night. I was up a little bit early. Had kind of a so-so weekend, and I managed that the best that I'm able, which is with my resolve to stay the course, and the fortitude that I use to just push through. Today will be a better day. So let's do my good life meditation. My 7 objectives are to 1, be always ready to die, to have everything in order. 2, to make good use of the time that I have. 3, to develop and keep in good working order my objectives and principles. That's why I do this good life meditation every day. Next is to cultivate good emotional reactions so that I can make sure that I'm not flying off the handle when things go south, as they sometimes do, but keeping a steady, stoic demeanor and way of being. Next is to perform good actions, just to do good things. Then to recognize my true limits and my true opportunity so that I'm not fooling myself or confusing myself. And then just to do one thing at a time and to do that thing slowly. So those are the objectives that I have in life, the things that I'm striving for. And the result of those objectives is what I call the good life, borrowing that term from the Stoics, and from even earlier than that, from Aristotle himself. Homage really to them. Next are my 30 principles, which are 1, war, to always be fighting against what I think is true. 2, reason and the sub-principles of honesty, objectivity, and doubt, which are the tools that I use in that aforementioned war. Because if I'm believing things that aren't true, I'd like to be disabused of that as soon as possible. And there's nobody better than to do that than to do it myself. Or more convincing, I should say. 3, the homunculus, the little mortal who lives inside my head and who will die when I die. A reminder that I have no soul. Pardon me. 4, the Anchorhold, a little rock sticking out of the sea of death where I'm perched. You are on your own Anchorhold as well. We all are. We can't escape, and we're ultimately quite alone. But we can yell at one another across the waves. Yahoo! Next is the home of good and evil. The idea that right and wrong are opinions that we maintain and carry with us inside our heads. They, good and bad, right and wrong, evil itself does not reside in the stars. It resides in our brains. Purpose is the next principle. My purpose is to be a good husband and father, to be a good member of society, a virtuous man, where virtue is the improvement of the well-being of others, particularly thinking creatures. And then some mission in life. And my mission is the writing of my book and the sharing of that message. The next principle is the atomic principle. Everything is made of little bits and pieces, atoms and molecules, as Democritus once pointed out, although he had no way of really knowing. And very soon, after we're dead, we dissolve away back to those constituent parts. The next principle is the principle of nature. Everything has some particular nature. And it's good to recognize what that is. Keep it in mind so that we're not surprised when that nature is revealed and manifest. The next principle is the pirate ride. A hypothesis that free will is an illusion, that our every choice, our every action is the consequence of all the unfolding events of the universe that led up to now, to the moment of our decision making. Next comes the principle of maturity and the sub-principles of wisdom and fortitude. We are mature when we remember our successes and failures and have the strength and resolve to be better. Next comes the social principle. We are social creatures. We need each other. Then comes public speaking, a reminder to use few words, carefully chosen words, and to be very deliberate in our speaking, to be all right with silence, and to never gossip. Next comes temperance, and the sub-principles of suffering, simplicity, and apathy, where temperance is our controlled consumption. Again, like the words, not just controlling our use of words, but controlling how we do everything, work and play, and everything at all, which leads to a simple life. And we have to suffer a little bit because we're in the practice of denying ourselves what we want and apathetic to we become apathetic to the things that are outside of our control. Then comes the horror show. Life really is chock full of horrible, dare I say terrible, terrors. Can't, and I don't want to deny that. I don't want to pretend that's not the case. I want to acknowledge that and do what I can to help relieve that. The next principle is called that which must be borne, which I talked about earlier. We bear the things we have to do, like the difficult job that we have to show up for every day, or the pain in our hip that just won't seem to go away. Whatever it is. And we keep our hands on the tiller and the boat steered towards dawn. Next comes distraction. We spend our lives distracting ourselves with everything that we do. Our jobs and our families and our hobbies, television, video games, whatever it is, so that we don't have to witness and acknowledge the awful emptiness of the universe that doesn't seem to give a damn about us. Called the Great Indifference. Next comes the best seat in the house. To not want to be anyone else or be anywhere else or be doing anything else, but to be okay with who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing right now. Next is the Path of Wildness, which is a trick I use to move out of the status quo into something new by deciding that a change is needed, looking at my options, collecting facts, and then making a decision. And if I haven't got enough good facts to make an informed decision, then I lean in with my gut. What was my first intuition? And go with that. Acknowledging that it may be the wrong direction, but noting that there's virtue in forward movement. Excuse me. The next principle is called the risk of avoiding risk. The fact that there's deep risks, the deep risk of not spending time to find ourselves, so to speak, and to live the life that we wanted to live, to become the man or woman that we dreamed of. And then the shallow risks of following the status quo, of education, job, family, etc., which is becoming more difficult lately, it seems. Maybe that's giving people a chance to pursue the deeper risk. Interesting. I wonder if that will yield fruit later for this generation that's more active in their youth. The next principle is the complete damnation. Is that right? No, sin and damnation. I almost mixed two. There are 7 sins in my worldview. These are falsity, telling lies, credulity, an overeagerness to believe, hope, which is want disconnected from action, faith, where the thing we believe is held up as the evidence for the thing itself, authority, believing because someone with a booming voice, a big hat, or quite an authoritative stance or fancy clothes tells us it's true. Dogma, believing because it's written in the big book. And then superstition, which I think is interesting because it's a class of fancy that by its very definition seems nonsense. And then gossip, which is a deadly sin indeed. Next comes complete oblivion. When we die, our bodies will be wiped out by decomposition, flames, however it's done. And nothing will remain of us eventually. Maybe bones, maybe some ashes, but certainly nothing of this electrical circuit, this instantiation of consciousness inside our heads. All evidence suggests that that's gone. In fact, yesterday I'm reading from Aristotle's, the works of Aristotle, and it was interesting how Aristotle was complaining of Plato's suspicion that we carried on, and Aristotle's like, there's absolutely no good evidence to think that's the case. Happen to agree, Mr. Aristotle. Complete oblivion. So therefore, it's the time for to get together with those that we love, to make up with them, is now, and to seek after justice, that's now too. Won't be a chance to do it after we're dead. Not that it'll matter then. Oh, excuse me. Next comes, after complete oblivion, comes the great life adventure. The effort to have one or more experiences in life that kind of become the centerpiece of our living, preferably when we're young. But we can do it throughout life, though it becomes harder as we get older. Even if we have more resources, more money and time, we become old and weak and timid. To a greater or lesser degree. Yeah, I'm paying my price for not sleeping so well last night. The next principle is the season of philosophy, which is a time of life to record what we've learned that we want to share. It's important to do it when the words are there, because the opportunity fades. Fleetingly, very quickly goes away, like sometimes within moments. So I always keep a pen and paper handy, or my notebook in my phone. Okay. Next is the bullseye aim, striving for the mark and missing. I reminded myself that that's usually the case. That one really helps me out a lot of work. Then comes the uphill climb. Life is a steady march uphill. Arena in the utility. Life is an arena for the development and execution of our objectives and principles. Nothing is enough. Just a simple reminder that less is sometimes so much more. And then the principle of fun. A reminder to enjoy your time. Enjoy your time and enjoy our time. Interesting, again, with Aristotle, he was describing in here how it's a principal responsibility of society to help its members to learn how to enjoy life. That's a real measure of society. The real measure of society is not what it teaches in terms of business, agriculture, etc., although those are important, but more keenly what its people can do in their leisure hours. He recommends music, among other things. How interesting. Interesting that I've waited this long to read Aristotle. I made an attempt decades ago, but it was a little difficult for me to read then. It's easier now. Still kind of tough. Okay, before I talk about the coming day, that was the last principle. One incident, I want to remind myself of an incident that happened yesterday, where I had a chance to use some of my principles. There's the neighborhood here, this community where I live, in Menifee, people are more prone to let their dogs wander around without a leash. I've got little dogs, so it's some kind of a risk. There's a house up the street where they don't let the dog out, but they let it out on their little front porch, and it can easily jump over the little wall. And I learned that earlier this week when I was walking the dogs. I happened to be carrying Rudy, the little dog, Ollie was by my side, and it's a big dog. It's a like a yellow lab. It jumped over the wall. I heard the woman, probably the mother, saying, "Don't you do that." And she said it rather loud, and I was on the alert. I turned around, and sure enough, big dog. It's a big dog, even though it's a lab. I mean, you think of labs as being nice, but this one was aggressive. And it came hackles up, snarling, teeth bared, right up to me. And I'm clutching the dog. I reached down and grabbed Ollie and lifted him up, and I've got the two dogs, and I'm ready to push the dog back with my feet, whatever I need to do. And I'm wearing shorts, so I'm vulnerable. And the woman came out and was able to kind of collect the dog, and the dog came back. I wasn't very happy about that. And I gave her a sour look to communicate that displeasure. Anyway, yesterday, coming home from a dog walk, came around the corner over here, and I saw that same dog was out in the street. I didn't have the dogs with me. I was alone. Actually, I had already taken the dogs for a walk. They didn't want to go for a very long walk. They wanted to come home, so I took them home, and then I went out for a hike on my own, and I was coming back from that hike. I saw that dog, so I crossed the street to basically make some distance from myself. But it was too late. The dog had seen me, and he came charging. This is half a block down. Came charging at me, and the same thing as before, right up to me, hackles, and was really scary. It was kind of trying to go around. It was trying to get around. It actually went around a car to kind of take me from behind, and I stood my ground. Again, I was ready to ward the dog off with my feet. And then I noticed like a 17-year-old, 16, 17-year-old girl behind a car, and she had called out for the dog. The dog didn't listen, and so what is she doing behind the car? It looked like she was, kind of ducking behind the car. So I yelled to her. I said in a firm voice, "Please come get your dog." I don't want to yell loud. My family's asleep. And then she came out from behind the car, came a little bit closer, yelled for the dog. Apparently the dog listens, got its attention, turned around and ran back towards her, and she ducked behind the car again. Well, as dogs are, it got about halfway to her, remembered me, turned back around and came charging back, full force, hackles up, the whole thing, quite intimidating, quite scary. And the girl had, popped. Then she noticed the dog didn't come, so she popped out from behind the car, and she's yelling for the dog, and the dog's right in front of me, doing the whole thing, teeth bared. And so I yelled to the girl. I said, "Please come get your dog." No uncertain words. Come take care of this. And so she came, and as she approached, I noticed that she was crying. Now, she wasn't crying when she left the car. I could see her face pretty clearly. So the incident, seems that she was hiding behind the car because she was either ashamed or something. But having been summoned to come get the dog, that brought out some emotion in her. And I had this moment where I had to collect my thoughts and decide what to do. And I tried to utilize my good life principles to that end. And I used reason to think that I feel sorry for her, that she's crying. I don't know why she's crying. It may be a culmination, maybe a little bit of a Feast of Offal there. Oh, I forgot that one, Feast of Offal. I knew I was forgetting something. So Feast of Offal is when the emotions come out too much and you kind of let it loose into the world. You can do that in a very negative way, or you can just, weep. Sometimes people do that. But I thought to myself, I feel sorry for her. I would love to comfort her a little bit. I'm not going to touch her, but, offer some comfort. But at the same time, she and her family need to clearly understand that this is not acceptable. Letting this dog that is clearly aggressive to roam free, or to have easy access to roam free, is a dangerous thing. And so I decided I would just simply stand my ground, keep a stoic face, no emotion on my face, maybe slightly negative emotion to convey my displeasure. And she came and she grabbed the dog, by the collar, and she turned it around and started walking back with it, talking at the dog, as she was crying. And she took it on home. And she went to the other side of the street. I went on my way, and I went home. And I thought a lot about that throughout the afternoon. I was asking myself, did I handle that right? And I think I did. Because the important thing is not to belittle the importance of it. I could have laid in a little heavier and asked her to make sure that she didn't happen again. But her tears had me a little bit off, on my, I decided to ease up on that a little bit. But if it happens again with the adults, I'll let them know. I don't have to do it in a mean way, but I can do it in a firm way. So there was that. Okay, let's talk about the coming day. Today is a day of work, thank God. I like having work, and my plan for today is to my main project. I'm a project manager. My main project, the training manual that I'd worked on, is done. It's in final draft form now. I've got being reviewed with the team. Today I'm going to begin building I thought I wasn't going to do a PowerPoint, but I think I'm going to do a PowerPoint because I think I've got an interesting way to maybe to teach it, build some PowerPoint off of it, and then maybe even try a hand at recording a sample and delivery for the sake of the team, because they indicated they were curious to see how it would be delivered. That's fun work, so it should be a good day. And I don't have too many meetings today. Well, there you go. There's my good life meditation and my plan for the day. See, I'm already feeling better than I did when I started. It's interesting how this effort, this daily activity, really helps to put these objectives and principles foremost in my mind. I mean, I can almost pull them out at will now. Remember the principle of arena and utility. I can almost pull them out at will and utilize them. Whereas before I was doing it like this every day, it was a little more work to do that. Or sometimes I wouldn't remember until after the fact. It's much more useful to have them in the moment. Well, that's it for today. I wish you the best. Be safe, but not too safe. Take care.